All right, in this video, we're going to take a look at the safe operation on all the parts of our sliding miter saw. The miter saw is particularly good at making cross cuts, all those cuts that go across our board. It is really too short to be able to make any reasonable long rip cuts, and if we did, we would just be really way too close to the blade. So this saw is really specifically just for cross cuts. With all of our tools, you can see we have our table here that our boards are going to rest on, and we have a fence here that our boards are going to go all the way back up against. We also have a blade guard. This blade guard moves out of the way all of its own. So as I pull the saw down, the blade guard moves out of the way and we can make our cut there. The handle and the trigger are up here where my right hand is. You can use this left-handed or right-handed. You can hold it here or you can hold it like this. Either way is totally fine. It's whatever you're most comfortable with. Let's get a close look here at what's happening up here on the trigger. Okay, so here we are looking at the handle on the miter saw. There's actually 3 triggers that need to be known. First of all, in order to turn it on, you have to squeeze this section right here. There's a little trigger on this point. But you'll notice that as I squeeze it, it doesn't actually turn on. That's because there's a safety button right here. This can be turned on really simply with your thumb. Sorry, I'll get my thumb out of the way. With your thumb on your right hand, or just with the palm of your hand on the left. So you just kind of hit it here, be able to grab and pull the trigger. When you do pull it on, turn it on, it sounds a little bit like this. It's a little ramp up there. Anytime you have a tool that takes a half second to ramp up, you need to wait that time before you try and cut with it. Otherwise, it will end up coming out with a rough surface. So take your time on all of our tools. There's one further switch on here. This is actually, and maybe you can read it, it says laser. That's right, there's a laser on this tool. You can't see it from this angle, but I'll show you that in the next one. And so if you ever come on and there's no laser visible, you can see here there's no laser, and we need to turn it on. It's just this switch up here on the top. Turn that on, and we now have a laser. So there's our laser on. Let's see if I can get the shadow on and off. That laser will help you line up your cut, which we'll take a look at next. Okay, here we are. Let's take a look at how to get set up to make a cut on the miter saw. First of all, the saw is going to be cutting down in this direction. You can see I've got my laser on for where it's going to be lining up. In order to better see this, I'm going to hold this out of the way. You don't want to do this when you're making a cut, but I want you to see where that blade is sitting. You can see I'm right down the center on that blade. And if you look closely, my laser is actually off to the left. Okay, that's going to be very important because as I line up my cut on this V mark, if I were to put my mark right here, I'm setting here, but my saw blade is cutting off on the right. But my X shows that I want to remove this part of the wood and keep that one. So this would actually end up making my cut a blade width about 1/8 of an inch too thin. Now I got 2 options here. One, I could actually just turn this whole thing around. And I could place this board right here where I'm on my mark, my blade is on the off side. However, this board isn't straight on this backside, so I really can't do it that route. So I'm going to keep myself tight to the table and tight to the fence, and instead I'm going to bring myself in here and I'm going to actually use the blade. To use the blade, I'm just going to bring it down really close, look right down the side of the blade, and you can see as you're looking at this, you can see my mark starts to show up, and I'm all set with lining this up. We want to be very aware of which side we put our blade on, and we want to make sure we're marking that every time we're using this. That way we can ensure we get a nice, accurate cut and the finished dimension we're looking for. Now that we've seen how to turn on the saw, as well as how to line up our cut, let's do both those things and make a cut. Now, one thing that's important to note is that this is a sliding miter saw. So instead of just a downward option on some miter saws, this is actually able to come forward and cut out as well. This gives us a deeper cutting capacity, cross-cut capacity still. But in order to make a cut safely like this, we actually want to pull out, cut down, and push back is going to be the motion. So we're going to start here, we'll turn it on, we'll pull it all the way out, down, and then push straight back into it. If you don't want to, if you've got a small enough piece, we can actually lock this in place with this little knob back here, and then we can actually just cut up and down and it will not slide out no matter what we do. So we're going to do it as a sliding saw. We'll let it slide out, we'll cut it down. First things first, line up my cut, and I'm lining it up here. Notice that I'm not pulling this out of the way this time. I'm just going to line it up here. I might look on this side since that's where my mark is. We're going to line it up here. We're going to lift it off. I don't want to be in contact with the board when I make the cut. And my hand's going to be holding this. We always have to hold these boards down. There is a clamp that can swing around, and if you wanted to use this, you're absolutely and always welcome to. It will tighten down and hold your boards nice and snug for you. And then you don't have to have your hand here. I personally am comfortable enough, and this hand is far enough away from the blade that it doesn't worry me. So I can set this up here, and we can make this cut. So we're going to start here, depress with the hand, my thumb, pull the trigger, pull out. And just like that, I've got 2 pieces. Ooh, look at that. There is one other nice thing. We know that term miter, and here's why this is called a miter saw. This whole base and the whole saw can rotate. So I can cut angles in either directions here. I can cut all the way to 60 degrees left or right of center on this. So this is our compound sliding miter saw. Really great for making crosscuts and an excellent tool to have in our repertoire.